briefly touched on the iPhone 10 discontinuation topic yesterday, but I feel like there's more to say on the matter, so today I want to go more in depth on why this rumor probably is taken out of context. So for one, I'd like to mention that a lot of the times when there's some kind of controversial Apple story, the media likes to run with it because headlines sell better than actual ideas. Now, I'm not blaming all of this on the media. This is partially due to people just reading headlines and not reading into actual articles, but this is what the headlines will tell you. Because of disappointing sales of the iPhone 10, it is going to be discontinued this summer, or this fall, or it's going to be discontinued soon. And then of course that makes all the clickbait titles and thumbnails, including this one. But because I am Apple's defense lawyer, as you know, I'm here to explain as to what exactly that means and as to why none of this is actually final. So first of all, first point to remember is the iPhone 10 has not even been on sale for 3 months. It originally went into Apple stores and was able to be delivered if you pre-ordered it on November 3rd. So we had through all of November, all of December, and now we're just about finishing up January. We haven't even reached 3 months yet. We're still in around that 10-week period, so given that most flagships are on sale for a year before they have a successor, there's not enough information for Apple to... There's no final decision yet if the iPhone 10 is getting continued or if it's getting discontinued. And if so, why would they plan a discontinuation 6 months or 8 months in advance? They don't know what the majority of the iPhone 10's life cycle is like. Now, what we do know from some rumors, and keep in mind, Apple has not fully disclosed how many iPhone 10 sales there have been yet. They're not completely public about that information, but they're supposed to be announcing that sometime next week. The rumors are that while they weren't terrible, that they were lower than what they were expecting. Now, I don't think this is a particular problem with the iPhone 10 because I've been seeing them everywhere. Literally any restaurant I go to, and that's in Butte County, I see someone using an iPhone 10. So I'm like, first of all, these things are extremely popular. Second of all, they're the most expensive iPhone that has ever existed. So I'm guessing sales for this thing are not doing too horribly. And I also hope that these headlines are confusing people about the fact that iPhones were the most activated smartphone during the holidays by far. So while sales may be a little bit disappointing for Apple, that by no means is a flop, because a disappointing sales record for Apple is probably the dream of a lot of other smartphone companies. The other important thing to remember is that in January, most people are not buying as much stuff. There's several reasons for this, and that actually affects me as a YouTuber. Because everyone buys a bunch of stuff during the holidays, and that's why Apple likes to release a bunch of things during the holidays, because people are all buying stuff, it means that when January comes along, most people's wallets are empty, and most people start going into more of a saving mode after the Christmas season. This means that advertisers, even on YouTube, pay less money to Google, and all creators have lower revenue throughout the month of January, just because not as many people are buying stuff. So while I'm sure the iPhone 10 probably had a huge dip in sales in January, I'm sure every other smartphone company also had a huge dip in January. The other bit of context people take out of place with the discontinuation rumors is that just because a product is discontinued a year after its release does not really mean that that product is a failure. It just means that there's more things in store for that product line coming very soon. So for instance, the first generation Apple Watch, while very popular and a lot of people were buying it, that was discontinued a year later because it was replaced by not just the Series 2 but also the Series 1. They made an improved version of the first generation Apple Watch by including a dual core inside of it and also charging the same price. In fact, it was actually a little bit cheaper than the original Apple Watch, but yet after that you could not buy the regular Series 0, the original first generation one. That wasn't available anymore. It got discontinued, but that was because there was a better product put in its place. Now, I think that is very possible with the iPhone 10 lineup right now. It's completely reasonable to assume that yes, it'll be discontinued right when the new iPhones in September come out, but not because the sales for the iPhone 10 were so bad, but more because there will be a newer generation of the iPhone 10 that has probably the A12 chip, maybe a thinner camera bulge, more color options, and because of that, this year's 2017 iPhone 10 will be discontinued in favor of that new iPhone 10, or 11, or whatever it's going to be called, that has better specs and will hopefully be cheaper. Another good example of this is the iPhone 5. A year after the iPhone 5 came out, Apple introduced the iPhone 5S and the 5C. Immediately, the iPhone 5 was discontinued because they wanted you to buy a 5C, being it was the cheaper phone. It was the one that was knocked down in price, and it basically had all of the same specs as an iPhone 5, in fact, a little bit better battery life. So instead of saying you can buy last year's iPhone, they instead said, buy this new phone that is designed to be cheap. And by no means does that mean that the iPhone 5 was a flop, they just had something better to replace it with. So while there's a lot of reports saying the iPhone 10 is going to be discontinued, I think it has much more to do with products that have yet to come out than it does with sales of it right now. It wouldn't make sense for Apple to discontinue one of their most successful smartphones ever midway through the cycle. For people out there thinking it's going to be discontinued in June or May or before August or anything like that, I'm pretty sure they're gonna keep selling it at full price up until September when the new iPhones come out, alongside the iPhone 11 or the 2018 iPhone 10 Plus, whatever it's gonna be called. That's probably when you won't be able to buy this year's iPhone 10 anymore, because they'll have a newer one that is physically, hardware-wise different, but better in every way and probably even cheaper. What I do think this puts a push on, because while I think it's perfectly reasonable to say maybe the iPhone 10 isn't selling as great as people thought it was, it really encourages Apple to maybe diversify that lineup a little bit until the recycle comes out. So for instance, making new color options. That's a really easy way to get people excited about a product release again. I know there's tons of Apple sheep out there who would love to see a blush gold version of the iPhone 10. Or particularly, in my opinion, I would love to see a product red one, or why not a blue one? There's only 2 configurations right now, and one request a lot of people have is the 128GB option, which is not there with the iPhone 10. Perhaps if Apple went that way, a lot more people would feel encouraged to upgrade. They would see the color they want or the tier they want and feel like, okay, now it's time for an upgrade. Now that production is slowing down a bit because less people are buying them, the holidays are over. Also, just the people who are interested in having thinner bezels and Face ID and all of the changes we saw with the iPhone 10, they all bought that in the November-December period. People who are really excited for the iPhone 10 typically don't wait months and months and months to buy one. So there's a big rush when it first comes out, and then afterwards it kind of stagnates. But usually when people get out of school, or people are during school or throughout the year, once we get out of that January downslope, people have more money they've saved up, and then when they decide that their phone is ready to upgrade, they'll buy the 10. So no, I don't think it's going to be discontinued before September. If it is discontinued, it will likely be in September for a good reason, because it will have a new replacement. So those are the primary reasons I don't think that the iPhone 10 is getting discontinued early. Sure, sales might not be as good, but I think that's a problem all smartphone companies are gonna have. It's rumored that between the iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and 10, they equated to around 60% of all of the iPhone purchases in the last quarter of 2017, which is lower than that of the iPhone 7 upgrades, which were 75% of activations the year before. But I think that's because a lot of people were actually interested in buying an iPhone 7 with that new price reduction. Apple now has the new challenge of a lot of people are content with the phone they have, and it gets increasingly difficult to find reasons as to why they should upgrade, because their iPhone 7's working fine. And now they can get one for a really good deal. Some people see wireless charging, or they see no home button, no touch ID, and they go, I don't really need that. I'm fine with what I got. This is gonna be something Apple has to deal with for years on out. And I'll be curious to see how they get people excited for iPhones again, as I think the iPhone 10 was a pretty hard smartphone to beat. So those are my thoughts on the matter. You can let me know what you think of the iPhone 10 discontinuation in the comments below. And while numbers may be smaller than Apple may have been predicting, I'm sure they're still higher than that of most smartphones out there, including the Google Pixel. So this is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.